Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome back. All right, so if you're watching this on YouTube, there's some technical issues, so we're just going to kind of like start this over from the beginning. The short version is poor Tesh doesn't have a functioning camera at the moment, but that's okay. We put his flag up to show his true blue pride, so it's definitely
Oh, of
everything's
course you did.
fine. True blue pride, he's good to go. All right, put a pin right here. If you're watching this on Twitch, I'm gonna drop pins here. So we all good.
Yep, as good as I can be.
Some would say that you've even been uplifted. I mean, you've got certainly a grand flag. You could have a shit flag, but you have a grand flag flying in front of your camera, so that works wonderfully to cover up your the issue going on right now. So we're good to go.
I
All
mean, I
right,
can't tell the difference really.
between Tesh and a flag,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, honestly,
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of like expressive of the show, isn't it? Look, there's a huge chunk of the Great British flag, the Union Jack right there, and then there's a couple of other little stars.
oh, that
You know,
was
there's
that was
a
good.
push to
That was
change
good.
that flag.
That's good. That was good. Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate that. Is a push to change the flag?
Yeah.
Why?
Let's let's
So
let's uh let's
let's talk about that
stop.
later.
Let's stop
Yeah,
these
Scott.
We'll talk about that later, Scott.
Okay. Cool. 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 So, but you're happy with your flag, right?
Oh yes, I'm happy with the flag. Yes.
Okay. Good. Good. I'm glad you like your Aussie flag, and we're all good. All right. Cool. All right.
There's more to it than that, but I will explain later. Let's go.
All right. Cool. So moving on. Let's in Climë. I'm going to sum this up in case you missed it all before. I wanted to skip through all that goofing. You saw the session zeros, you saw the characters, you saw in Climë, you know what all of this is. Where the campaign is going to be starting, as previously stated, they're going to be serving their in Climë in the region and the province of Paradel called Duin. Duin is kind of like the river kingdom of Paradel. It's kind of like the smallest area where it has the least actual conflict on its borders because it has the smallest border that is in an area that is dangerous, barely touching the barren lands. Actually, most of the barren lands where they have to deal with Paradel, they're going to be dealing with Ledene or Ledeno, Rast or Delagus, right? Very, very little touching with Duin because Duin has very little interest of having to fight there when they have other things that they focus on. The Duinair, which is the prince of the province, they were able to wrestle control of all of the rivers, not just inside their own realm, but all the rivers that flow into Duin that even touch it at all. They have been able to convince the Trumbar of their own area of Paradel and all the other Trumbar to make it so that all of the rivers that run through, they have complete control over those rivers themselves and a smidge of the border, like the bank of the rivers. Now, how wide a bank is, that's up for debate in each area. That's a really good question. And whether or not they actually own the rights to the rivers inside of other nations, like, say, Edir, which isn't a nation, but also isn't Paradel, or the Barren Lands, which isn't a nation, but also isn't Paradel. Whether or not they own those rivers, that's a different conversation, but certainly one that the self-proclaimed and named River King, the Duinair, would love to take an argument with others. As a matter of fact, they are even able to raise their own very specialized group of soldiers, this very special branch of their military called Neil.
The River Guard.
To specifically see to it that the rivers themselves are maintained free of conflict, free of banditry, and so on and so forth. The River Guard has a lot of important defense and in some cases offense tactics that they need to do. So they're trained to be soldiers. But the River Guard also includes a degree of civil engineers whose job it is to make sure that the rivers are maintained in a decent are maintained well, and that there's not like obstructions, like fallen trees or whatever it is that could interfere with the flow of commerce. Where the campaign directly starts is not just in Dween, it's actually specifically in one of the cities there known as Meglin. Meglin, if you're looking at the map, is over on the right-hand side of the little bay that's there. Meglin is a very important area of Dween because it is a very calm bay. It is at the base of one of the rivers. It's actually at the base of the river that flows so far into the north. One of the rivers just barely touches into Eldamar itself. It also has lakes that are right at the very top of Leyden A, where a lot of the trees, the logging and whatnot that comes out of Eldamar, that high quality wood that can be taken down from Eldamar, can be just rafted or barged all the way down into Meglin, and from there shipped out to everywhere else. But the Calm Bay area is also super important for the sake of all the shipwrights. That Calm Bay is used for the construction and testing of new ship designs, whether they be warships, they're usually warships, or like barge or other types of exploration ships. They'll typically be built inside Meglin, or at least the construction will finish in Meglin, usually all of the construction there, and put into that bay because there's almost no weather that happens there that would cause concern. So they can really kind of get things going. So when you're in Meglin, and you're standing at a kind of a vantage point where you can see a good bit of the open beach line that's there. It's not like the beaches of Australia where they're beautiful. I mean, look at that. Look at Australia. Tesh there showing his Australian pride. Not like the beaches of Australia where they have their incredible what's the word I'm looking for? Beach line, great sandy beaches where people can go. It's more like being inside, let's say, Boston Harbor, where you kind of stand there and you just see a whole bunch of like buildings alongside there, some degree of craning happening there, though it's kind of rudimentary cranes that exist. These aren't super high tech or super advanced. They're not made out of steel. They're made out of wood with like little bits of steel reinforcement to them for transporting big heavy things, on and off of the ships and whatnot in the area. So that's kind of like what it is that the area that you guys are in. Now, because you are in Paradel, even though this is a city that's predominantly of commerce, as I said, there's a lot of shipwrighting to war designs here too. So there's, of course, a large military office that's going to exist here. I mean, Paradel is all about that military. It's the military life, the churning war machine is what makes Paradel as successful as it is. It's what constantly generates more commerce, constantly adds lands to their growing nation, and certainly it helps to add population to its growing nation as well. In Climë, we've defined before, but more or less, those peoples on the borders got a choice, and that choice usually involves joining the nation one way or another. Our characters were pulled here for their own reasons. They have their own goals, their own aspirations, and so they've all chosen to be in Climë. It's important to note that your
citizens of Paradel can choose to undergo Climë, which is what our characters have done.
Yeah, none of your characters had Climë forced on them. All of them have elected it.
Yep. So
that being said, all of your characters were brought here for one reason or another, serving in Climë under the province of Dween. Fun fact, Jake's character could actually easily transfer from one, what's the word I'm looking for? Province
Region.
that is doing Climë into another one, whereas your characters, when you chose which one you're doing it with, you're locked in there. So it is one of those things that Jake could actually divorce you.
And that's on merit of Viggo being a commissioned officer of a higher rank.
It's actually a merit of him being a Manel, a first-class citizen, rather than a second-class citizen called a Goriad. Yeah. Oh, did I get those names backwards? Shit.
I think
Manel is second class, actually.
Yeah.
I actually think Manel is second class and Goriad is first class.
I think that's right. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, right. Almost positive. Now I have to double check before we go any further. Because it's gonna bother me.
It's interesting because that's another reason why Gallon's circumstances are unique as
Manel
well.
is second.
Manel is second, yeah.
Yeah, he started his inclime in a different area to now because I assume he's been told to go here now.
No. You applied
But-
here.
No, remember I started inclime in your the
Ansia.
Jovancia, yeah.
You physically started there, but you were still operating
Oh,
there under the orders
okay,
that they're
yeah,
doing
never
here.
mind.
Yep,
Ultimately,
being
yeah,
a
yeah.
parent
My
born
bad.
outside of Paradel, you were automatically a Manel at birth. You just had to come here and apply for it. You're immediately accepted as a citizen of Jovincia. But when you actually went through the chosen
Pardon.
inclame, that you went to Dween.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yep, and ends yeah, exactly, yes, cool. Awesome. Either way, so this is where we are. So let us get to licorice is nasty, especially black licorice. So nasty. So sorry, something in chat.
Stop rabbit holing. We've only just started, Scott. I don't want to go off the rails.
Yeah, we totally have a nice 4-hour session ahead of us.
Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I can work overtime. Can you? Huh?
No, I have work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have to go to work. So, all right. So picking it up where we're down inside McGlynn. This, as I said, this is a massive port city. And it's important to note that it's most likely your characters, not you, Jake, but the other two of you. It's most likely your character's first time being in a port city of this, if not in a port city ever, then certainly of this caliber, right? How massive the shipping industry here is, how densely populated this is. It's also important to note that when you're dealing with a port city, yeah, there is like a sprawling nature to it for kind of like expanding outwards and somewhat upwards and inwards, but port cities also tend to build on top of themselves. They often build up because people that have a bit of money or that are trying to show status or whatever it might be would want to build up to make sure that they could have a sight line to the actual ocean. There's a value to that can't be understated. That can't be overstated, my apologies. So you'll actually notice that when you're here, when I say if your character has a vantage point looking out, there's not actually an easy thing to get your hands on. If you happen to be building at with all kind of like coastlines, you have like, river level, and then it kind of like goes up a bit. At the apex of that natural upwards that the land will go, however high or far back that might be, a lot of the buildings are going to be inclined to build as tall as possible, so the people behind them are then shaded by by the what it is that they see. So that's an important thing to note. So where it is that the Paradel's military branch happens to be, if you're actually looking at the Bay Area, they're going to be kind of at the top portion there, with a very wide, massive complex that it happens to sit in. And the reason why I use the word complex is you almost have to imagine almost like a college campus or any other complex or campus where there's actually a good amount of grass or space between each one of the many buildings, because there are several buildings that exist there, and each one of those buildings have a degree of height to them, but none as tall as the like the primary office where the a Trumbar will come and spend time, where the prince will actually come and take their meetings, where the high-ranking military officers will go and speak, and certainly where the different shipping shipwrights, whether they be guilds or otherwise, will be trying to garner favor for the next contracts to build the next ship or design or whatever it might be. That building itself is at an astounding 5 stories tall at its highest point. It's important to note that 5 stories tall is borderline unheard of unless you have like a watchtower. You know what I mean? So it's an astounding 5 stories tall, with that tallest portion being a small little, like almost like square block, almost like an indoor setting with almost just a roof all around it. The building itself is comprised of stone. So again, this is almost like a castle or like a keep in its own right, this one building here. So that 5th story is relatively small. It's almost like a house, like a one-floor house put on top of a roof with the next story beneath it, with a large open stone walking space around where one can kind of walk around out there and have outdoor meetings and see out and beyond. And it's important to note that it's in the central area of where the bay is, up in the highest point, because they could actually see the lands to the east and the land to the west, as well as the ocean to the south and to the north. They can actually watch all of that. You actually don't watch the sun rise or set over the ocean. You watch it rise and set over Paradel, especially since this is a southern hemisphere thing. You literally look to the north, to the to land, and you watch the sun rise and set over Paradel, because it is the only nation, right? It's kind of like an egocentric perspective that they have going on there. So anyways, it's important to note this building, but your characters are not actually inside of it. That is where high-ranking people might happen to go. And some BT, some battle tactician, is not going to go there unless he's licking the boots of somebody else who was sent to or asked to go there. One of the other buildings on the campus is where your characters are called to, and the person you're going to be reporting to is a battle commander. So this is BC for those of you taking notes. Wink, nudge, nudge. Person you'll be reporting directly to is a battle commander by the name of Selphira. Saelphira. Selphira.
Okay.
Say vassal commander.
My apologies.
BC.
Battle commander, correct? Which is a BC, which is a not to be confused with a BCen, which is a battle centurion.
Yeah.
Yep. They are decent ranked. You know what I mean? Actually, it's it's a rank above what's his face that you guys dealt with in the other campaign.
Yeah, the lady.
Oh, I meant the gentleman. What the hell's his name? From Rena's back, so Cadus. It's a rank above where Cadus was. Thank you. So Selphira is oh, my apologies. It's also important to note that Selphira, and you guys can actually roll me a knowledge if you either have knowledge nobility or profession soldier. You can roll either one of those. To a lesser degree, knowledge local or history, but that's a higher DC for you.
I love how we got more or less the same thing with Jake rolling a 6.
God damn! Oh my god, that modifier.
Soldier nobility. Okay, that's beautiful. Why was the modifier? I see a 3, a 5, and a
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If I had 6 seconds to think about it, I'd also like my +2 to apply there. Give me that.
Oh,
21.
hearing the name, absolutely. Yeah, you can get a 21. Sure, absolutely. Oh, that's right, because your cool item. We want to talk about those for those that didn't catch that like random stream that I did in the middle of last week. We'll talk about those in a moment. But so anyways, the reason why I was having you roll this is because of her last name. So her name is what is it? Selphira. But her last name is actually Sea Pearl. And the reason why she's known as Selphira Sea Pearl is because she was actually a Metahina who earned the title Sea Pearl because she was a when she was earlier in her career, she actually captained a ship, and it was the pearls of wisdom that she had, the actions that she chose to make in the ocean that really made a name for herself. And if you know the history of some of the Turumbar and whatnot in the area, they actually also have a history of making wise decisions out in the sea. So pretty much anybody who makes a name for themselves under the name of the Turumbar, not a prince, anybody who makes a name for themselves for doing like really wise or courageous things out at sea, where the world around you, the sea is like the barren lands. Everything wants you dead at all points in time. You know what I mean? So to be able to survive out there and succeed out there is considered a step above just doing it on land, right? Jake's character, if you know his backstory, may have gone out to sea if it wasn't the fact that that nerd probably would get, seasick or whatever. Like, I'm nauseous, I'm nauseous. So, so either way, it was like her tactics and what it was that she did out at sea. Important to note, not combat tactics. Just the way that she handled oceanography in general, just kind of like all that work out there was how she had earned her name. All of your characters would actually know this. So she's actually a former Metahina that gains the name Sea Pearl. So, Sulphira Sea Pearl. Cool. Either way, you would just call her, BC or Battle Centaurian. You can be a bit more formal if you wanted to.
Battle Commander, right? Not Centaurian.
Battle Commander. Ha ha. Ha. Thank you. So
is she referred to as Battle Commander Saphira or Battle Commander something Pearl?
Usually it would be usually it would just be Battle Commander, but I guess if you were being a little bit more formal, you would use their first name.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you're being really not formal, you would just not use their name at all. If you're being super formal, use their whole title. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, it'd be Battle Commander, hero of the you know what I mean? But we don't worry about that stuff in the day-to-day.
That's the that's the announcement person giving the title.
Exactly. You don't want to deal with that, the typical. So you guys are here to meet with her. You've been stationed to meet with her. Your characters don't actually know each other at this point, so we're going to get to that in a second. So because it did come up already for Jake, Jake, do you actually want to talk about what it was? Because this is actually your parting gift from your brother. When you had kind of like pulling this down into the moments, when your character had left your home after spending as much time as you could in the garden before you feeling as though it's inappropriate, and you actually went to the hotel or the inn, where the room was paid for by that family friend, the old maid of the family. What was her name? Roz. Where Roz had set that room up for you. You actually find the parcel sitting there, and the parcel will clearly be from your. There'll be like no note or anything like that with it because you already had your real words. The real words have much more weight than some handwritten one. But you have a parcel set there, clearly with your brother's like signature on it. And when you open it up, you would find what was inside. I actually want you to go ahead and describe it, like what it actually physically looks like, and then how it looks on your character. And then while you're doing that, could you go ahead and actually describe your character for me?
Oh, okay. My character is he's a rather tall parent, 6'1", slim build. Long dark hair, green eyes. He has rather scarred and burned hands. I think would be the only thing of note. Other than that, pretty ordinary. However, he does have a. Let me just read what this is exactly. A little gemstone, sort of embedded close to his brow. It is black, and it seems to describe it. Unless you want me to describe what it's used for.
Oh yeah, you can describe the way it looks like, because when you look at it, it's a cut gem, right? So you can describe the way it looks.
With feeling.
Yeah, it is a cut in a probably like a diamond shape. It's only small. Although it is jet black.
Jet black, okay. It's good because it's funny. Yeah. I wanted to leave the full description of this up to you, so I didn't know if you wanted to go with almost like an opal like look to it, because Australian, or if you wanted to go with it sounds like you're more going with a black diamond, black sapphire kind of look to it, but so more like a diamond or sapphire.
Yeah.
So it's actually faceted as opposed to an opal, which doesn't usually have facets cut into it. It's more, polished. So cool. Gotcha.
It is very useful for him because it helps him recall his abilities, the things he can make, and all that stuff, rather than having to check his book all the time, as well as seems to give him a bit of edge on his knowledge abilities, things that he knows, helps things come clearer to him.
Okay. And because you don't describe your character as being 6'1", we can imagine the size of his dome piece. But how large is this actual crystal?
Not very large at all. It's quite small.
You want to give like a millimeters or centimeters or whatever?
Barely a centimeter.
Barely a centimeter. Okay.
Small.
Cool. So that's like a centimeter is what, 10 millimeters?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, but yeah. So still something that you would, and it's right in the center of the forehead, right?
Yeah, just a bit above his brow.
Cool. And do you wear any headgear that accents or kind of like plays in with it, or is it literally no? I just got a dome piece and this gem sitting here. I know millimeters.
Nothing at the moment.
Like I know how big a millimeter is off the top of my head, and I actually know how big about 10 millimeters is off the top of my head. I was just converting it to make sure it's milli is 1,000, centa is 100, deca is 10. Just confirming. So my apologies. Nothing on your head, so it's just literally sitting there.
No.
Cool, awesome. So it's a faceted black gem, cut almost like the shape of like a diamond, implanted in the forehead there. Good to go. Cool.
To note, it is not like held there by something. It looks like it's almost been cut and placed.
Yep. Didn't a rapper get that done recently? Pretty sure a rapper had a diamond embedded into their forehead.
Oh my god.
I'm getting an alarm.
Stupid idea.
Rabbit hole has been detected.
Sorry, but short version, an actual some rapper has actually, I'm almost positive, had that embedded in their head, and the diamond prior to being embedded in their head was already worth, I think, like $1 million or some shit, or maybe it was less than that. But now that it's been in their head, it's the only one to have ever been in their head. You know, if that was ever ripped out of their dome piece,
Oh my god.
that's going to be worth so much more. So,
Wow.
don't get mugged. Anyways, the cool. So you have that kind of on your character. Thank you. So your character, when you focus into that, you actually have a certain amount of your formula that you can actually kind of like focus on and have inside there, which is pretty cool. But more importantly, if you focus on it for a full round action, which is about 6 seconds, you can actually like really contemplate things, and it's almost like the actual facets inside there, instead of like a diamond which kind of like takes light and bounces around and spits it out with all of its like brilliance and whatnot. It almost like takes your thoughts and bounces around and sends it back, kind of like a bit of a refocus to it, or even like prisming it to giving like a wider array of thoughts to allow you to kind of recall information a little bit better, right? That's kind of like what it does with your almost like brain waves on the inside. So you can actually get a +2 on, I think, all knowledge skills, right? He's coughing.
That's
but I'm
correct.
pretty sure it's all knowledge skills. So anyways, thank you. Tesh, would you like to describe the item that your character got?
Yes.
And then what your character looks like.
Okay, so the item I got was deep crystal braces, and these are braces of accuracy. So as a swift action, I can choose to expend 1 to 3, and that's 3 per day, of the points in it to essentially bypass cover, indirect, like stuff like blur, or if I spend all 3, I can get through full cover with thrown weapons. And also, I can focus in on it, and I can, as a free action that does not provoke an attack of opportunity, I can channel psionic power for 2 power points, so that the next hit I deal with my throwing stuff, which you'll see soon, deals 2d6 points of damage, and it will last for up to 1 minute or until I score a hit.
Yeah. That's to be. It's not just anything thrown from it. It has to be something that's kind of like almost has a bit of like nature to it, like a.
We'll get into what
we'll get
we're
into all
throwing
that.
later.
Sure. But the
so
important thing is,
yeah. So I imagine the deep crystal being a sort of very deep blue, almost looking like deep blue ice that's vaguely transparent but not really, and it's very smooth, very clean, clean cut. And the braces themselves do not look sharp. That we'll get into how all this works later. And as for Galen himself, so he is wearing full sort of parade armor. It's all done up nice. It looks very clean. It's spotless. It's very much taken care of. He's 6'1" as well, actually, with green eyes, but his hair is white and his skin is a good bit paler than most parent. And he has a scar on the left side of his head that actually goes around towards the back of his head and stops some of his hair from growing. Now, apart from that, he's a standard soldier. He's pretty decently built, but also not like bodybuilder, like, of course. He's loaded with weaponry. He's got a bastard sword on his back with a bow. On his hip, he's got a quiver of arrows. On the other hip, he's got a whole bunch of chakrams set in on his belt, ready to use. And he's standing at attention, waiting for whatever he's here for.
It's upsetting to me that I could take my the headband, which is rather thick for my headphones, bring it to the base of my hairline, and looking at the other side, it's like, yeah, that's about the size.
That's a normal forehead.
It's like a 3.5 head. You know what I mean? Like, God damn it.
Oh, dear.
Oh, God damn it. That's okay. When all three of you are bald, they'll still have the same hairline. God damn it. It's one thing I got from my grandfather. It was like a 6 head, 7 head. All right. So anyways, oh, Jesus. Thank you, thank you, Tesh. The only thing I didn't get off of you is that the bracers themselves. What material were they made out of? I mean, I know there's dark crystal built into it, but they're not actual hard dark crystal, are they? They have dark crystal built into it.
Built into it, no. So it's like almost like I would say lines of the crystal built into it, so it moves freely apart from like the streaks of crystal.
Gotcha.
Probably. I don't know what's common, but it'd probably just be leather for ease of movement.
Yeah. Almost like leather, almost like a bunch of like woven bits of leather that the
exactly
crystal could have been laid into. Cool. Because bracers are also used for defense as well as offense.
Exactly.
Are there any amounts of like plating or anything like that you would try to divert an attack to so it didn't hit the crystal, or is it no leather and crystal? It's good enough. Move on.
I would think. Honestly, he'd probably leave it at the leather and crystal, given things we'll get into.
Cool. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thank you so much.
But for him, crystal doesn't necessarily mean brittle.
That's true. And you can also imagine there's almost like the crystal almost has like this nice almost like a flowery smell to it for some reason.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah. I wonder what that is. What is that?
Honeysuckle.
Ah,
yeah, he's
right.
Grown quite fond of it and used to it.
Cool. So, anyways, the thank you so much for describing your character, Neil. Their characters, of course, have come to make to the meeting. Now, your character would do so as well. And one of the important things to note about your character as he comes up is this location where you are coming into the city. This city that you're coming into actually is not a walled city. That's kind of an important thing to note is it is not a walled city at all. There are some areas of the shipwrights where there's a bit of walling to it just to kind of like pull eyes away from, kind of like deter people from being able to see into what necessarily they're working on, because some projects will have a degree of like secrecy to them. But it's funny because, again, if you have the ability to fly or whatever it might be, you could probably see what they're doing anyways. It's not like they have these huge, massive hangars they're building ships into, because that kind of construction is a little bit advanced, right? So your characters, you come into the city, would easily be able to ride in, and you get to have the perspective of, kind of like as you're going in, it goes from farmlands on the outskirts to farmlands get a bit more dense, to there's more and more homes around, to there's mostly some homes around here with bits of farm kind of about them, little shops and whatnot. That's like the outer skirts of the city where most of like just like kind of the more calm folk would live. And there's a bunch of different like, little shopping and marketplaces that exist out there, but these are like riding into the actual like medium part of the city. This is where you have like a lot of the shops and whatnot for people that would be more traveling to the outskirts of the city to trade stuff in and then leave. There's going to be more of like trade for that kind of, but then once you actually get into the city itself, where it's like the city proper, it's going to be significantly more dense. Again, the houses themselves are going to be not an individual person's home. It's going to be multifamily homes that are kind of like built up or built wide. There's no farmland that exists out here at all. There's barely anything by way of parks that exist over here. Small bits here and there that might be put in by the government at some point in time to make the place look a little bit nicer, a degree of like nature to be included there. But for the most part, it's just a whole bunch of houses built on top of it. You also get to see the roads themselves start off as being, packed dirt roads. And as you get closer and closer, it kind of transitions to being a cobbled road that exists there. And then the cobbling itself actually gets to be far nicer quality. And there's almost like a sand-packed cobble road where it comes up to it. It makes it so the cobbling, if you were to be pulling a wagon, would be far less because you don't want to destroy precious goods that are traveling through there as well. So it's a bit more smooth, right? So and that's going to be again the most inner parts of it there. So your character kind of like riding in and riding over to this compound. One of the things you'll notice at the compound is that there's actually very large stable. I mentioned multiple buildings there. One of the buildings itself is specifically for stabling the different horses. And it's actually kind of cool because when you go up to the stabling area, there's like an outdoor and an indoor stable that exists. The outdoor for more of like just dropping off your horse and going in. Indoor for more of like long-term stay. But even inside the stable itself, as your character goes to have your horse put there, there's no charge for any of this. You are in the military. So even if you were just some sort of recruit, you know what I mean? You would have no charge to put your horse here. This is a horse that's given to you or whatever, being maintained by the military itself. Kind of like poking about because your character would clearly come in fairly early. With a farm life in your background, you're also rather a bit of an early riser and a bit of curiosity from things that you care about. Poking around in there, you would notice that on site at any point in time, they have various farriers. Which is you can hear the tinging. You probably go over and check the caliber of the horseshoes that are there. Kind of looking at it, you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I have a bit of coin to spare, or if I can convince them to put these horseshoes on my horse. These are actually quality. You'd see that they would have multiple vets or horse doctors on site, like not just like one either. There's like 4 or 5 on site walking about checking the stables. It's actually one of those things where when you go to stable the horse, the stable hand that comes over as you finish kind of like doing your own work, because you just kind of assume, I'll just take off the stable hand comes over and kind of looks at you and they're like, thanks, as they see that you just kind of did all the work yourself. You yourself not accustomed to the kind of treatment that you would expect you will in the future expect to get when you come to a place like this. Looking it over and they'd say, when was the last time the horse was checked?
Well, he's not had a formal check in a few months, but he'd probably tell me if something was wrong. And he affectionately pats him.
The walking up to the horse, but doing so in like you can see a very well trained, respectful way, kind of stepping forward, offering the hands for the horse to smell, but not like from a distance either, like comfortably stepping up to the horse, offering the hands, giving small gentle pets, and then walking alongside the horse after the horse gets used to it over to where you are, but keeping a hand on the horse. The horse always knows where he is. Again, this is somebody who's clearly knows their way around to animals that don't know him, right? So walks up to you and says, well, how long are you going to be staying for? I can have it looked at and make sure everything's okay.
I don't know exactly how long we'll be staying, but I suppose it wouldn't hurt. I presume it's free.
Gives you kind of a quizzical look, and then like looks at the horse, then looks back at you and tries to check out like the ranking based off of like the clothing that you're wearing, because rank is one of those things that it's obvious if you look for it, but you don't Yeah, it's free. I'm so sorry. I just thought, well, because this is a beautiful, and my apologies. Yeah, there's no cost to it.
I think that's interesting. I think it's Karok is a big horse, like a big grey stallion, like clearly of excellent pedigree. So like it's a fair assumption when you see like particularly Karok has military saddle, of course, rules wise military, so a fine quality saddle, and has leather barding as armor. So he's clearly a war horse as well, or at least capable of functioning as a full-on destrier. It's also it's funny because Tristan obviously has been in the field for some time now. Since we last saw him, he's wearing better armor. He's like in the stable, he would have left his lance and his shield. But he'll still be wearing his armor. So you can see in the background, there's this extremely fine quality ash lance. Like we're talking, it's so fine that the tip has a leather sheath made for it, and the sheath is embossed, which is obviously it's a show of workmanship. Knowing Tristan, you can guess probably he didn't pay for this. But it's an extremely fine piece of work, and he himself is wearing what we would call half plate. His upper half, other than the helmet he has under his arm, he's wearing plate armor, which is obviously again a sign of relatively decent wealth. But also, it's important to note that when you consider his role as a champion, it fits perfectly because, of course, champions, their roles are effectively lead by example.
Yep, making sense, of course. It is because they don't have anybody that serves underneath them. They are the ones that others, because that next rank from a champion is going to be a warden, which actually it's the first rank of an NCO. So this is like the best of the best for the non NCOs, right? All right. So anyways, you're standing there, and he's like, "Oh, of course," and then you respond something along the lines of like, "Oh, of course," then sort of a thing. Do you mention the horseshoes or anything like that, or do you?
I mean, on the presumption that everything's free, like everything's free, and Karok could probably do with a look at his.
Neil's that person. They come to your house like, "Can I get you a drink? You want like a coffee, a tea? What can I get for you?"
He's still have an espresso.
Yeah. A bit, famished. If you want to grab a pizza too, I'm down. Like. And do you want to have a late with your wife?
We can order in. We can order in. Oh, great. You know the local place, right? You got this.
He does pronounce it incorrectly. I noticed as well, Josh.
Look. If I want to call it an espresso, I can. If I want to call it an espresso, you got to do the hand movement. And
oh God,
I'm tired. Come on.
Oh.
On the other side of the camera, Anno's like, "Plete!"
Wow.
All right.
Espresso is gonna give it to
No, tangent bad.
Oh, poor DM. So he's the ex-DM, but either way. So
rest in peace.
Yeah. So yeah, do you mention it all or no? Sorry.
Yes, he would.
Okay. So you mentioned, he goes, "Oh, I can have them looked at by the farrier, and we can come up with we'll send the bill to you when it's all taken care of."
The eyes of just like, oh fuck.
Tristan would just tell Karok not to bite and then leave.
Okay. He's like, "Bill." And he's like, "Pat, no biting." And he'll actually he actually says that name one more time, Karuk.
Karok.
Last question. Any allergies?
Not that I know of.
He nods and says, "All right. Well, we've got some delicious things for. We got apples. So many apples." And kind of goes off. Each of your characters is going to make your way into the building where you have your meeting. Each of the buildings themselves are named in honor of a person in the military who has served their nation in like a way that was very reputable. One of the things that to note in you guys can go ahead and roll me another. This could be history or soldier with local or nobility being the secondary.
I'll take it. It's not too bad.
Is this for all of us again? Yeah.
Have you ever tried cooking apples first, Sel? A lot of people that have allergies to things like that, if you cook them first, they'll be safer.
Scott, you know what we don't have set up in this game yet?
What's that?
Luck dice.
There's a reason.
Not allowed.
Yeah, just like
Banned.
I refunded that Winifred's wisdom to Steve earlier because it's not allowed for the first 3 sessions. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's fair.
Yeah,
Cool.
you guys are untouched right now.
That's
So,
a 25 for me as well.
We're young and nubile.
So, as you guys are kind of like walking through, so it's a history is for yours. I said soldier history. The primary is nobility is the second. So Tristan, it makes sense that Tristan wouldn't. Doesn't really have any idea of who these people are. I would actually say Viggo would know all of the people, whereas Galen would probably be able to identify like who it is that the primary building is named after. It's Viggo that's able to identify all the individuals. But one of the things to note is that while the primary building is named after some long old office or whatever it is, the names of the different buildings are after different, again, people that served in the military and had some tremendous thing that they're well renowned for. But while there are 7 buildings here, to the complex, 5 of them are actually named after non-commissioned officers. You know what I mean? So whether they be people that were at most a champion or an actual NCO, they were actually not officers. So it's just important to note once again that it's not just by having a high rank or a high title or something like that. It's the Paradel honors all of its soldiers that do something remarkable in its during their time. Not necessarily remarkable enough to gain a high rank either. So just remarkable enough to remember it in history. So either way, and that's just because sometimes you what it was that you did of note isn't necessarily realized until after it was that you've passed. So and post-mortem promotions are a thing, but it's like you're jumping 5 ranks in that, right? Either way. So when you guys go walking into the building, and the names don't really matter for here, but when you guys go walking in the building that you're supposed to meet with the person that you're supposed to, there's no waiting in anything like this. It's actually the room that you are brought into, because there's many different rooms inside here. There are many different meetings that are had. You're actually brought into a room that almost feels like a very small classroom. This is something that Neil's character saw in his session 0. It almost feels like a very small classroom where there's several different tables, my apologies, seats with almost like little built-in desks on them as you kind of go in and sit down. Jake, you'll of course be familiar with this, your character, with the various different types of schooling that he's had, depending on what school he was in or what education he was getting at the time. He had different types of classrooms, so this is one of them. When each of your characters go in and you sit down and see this, Neil, you notice this because this is like a briefing room. You don't generally get briefing rooms. As a matter of fact, this is probably the 3rd time ever you've sat in a room like this. So, and every time it's happened beforehand, it was for something that's actually of note. You know what I mean? Like where you realize that the situation that you're handling is a little bit more sensitive than your typical meeting with the others. So back to Tesh. Your character, however, has sat inside many of these. Many of them.
Okay.
Even though you're my apologies, let me look at your rank again. You are an NCO, but it also comes with a specified training that you had beforehand. You have many briefings inside this. And Jake, again, you're an officer, so. You guys go in here. One of the things that you notice is sitting down. For who is the first person here, it's automatically not going to be Neil because he had to go stable a horse first, right? And all of the characters have degrees of punctuality because of their backgrounds, kind of who they are. But I'll allow Jake and Tesh to call somebody out in chat to roll a D100. The person that rolls lower is actually the one that gets to go first.
You know what? I see Cell's active. I call on Cell.
All right.
See how this goes.
And Jake?
Josh.
All right. Sell
I
and
knew he was
Josh.
going to call Josh.
Well, I don't see Vikings, so there's no
Oh,
clue.
you got the wrong one.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Oh, this is like
Damn it,
confusion,
Cell.
right? This is like confusion, right?
Wait, hang on. Wait, no, I rolled. Wait, Cell rolled well. Wait, that confused me for a second.
Low is better. Josh is a little boy. He
Oh,
can't,
low
he
is
can't,
better,
He can't
damn it.
roll that high. But to be fair, I think Cell's even shorter than Josh. So,
Yeah, Josh wins.
they're from
damn
the
it.
south. There's more gravity down there. They can't grow like us Northerners, right, Norway? Norway, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, I'm actually afraid to know how tall Norway is. Well, he's like, I don't know, 73 now. He's past his apex. I meant in his prime. So
You're going to get smited.
I prefer vertically challenged.
Norway doesn't smite small ribbing. Norway smites true trolling. So South doesn't know what gravity is. Don't compliment
Ooh.
them. Oh my god.
Oh, Norway's
I lo-
taller
I-
than you.
Oh, of course he is. Of course he is. He's Norwegian.
But I mean, like, that could be anywhere between
Shut up.
5'10",
No,
5'11", 5.
Back to the game. We don't want to tangent for too much here. So sorry, where were we? So your character being able to walk in first there, Jake, your character sets the tone, right? So when you walk into a room. This room has many different of these seats, and we all kind of know which desk that I'm talking about. It's like the chair that has like the arm kind of built into it, that kind of like half comes around. It's one of those arms that if you're right-handed, it's super convenient for you. If you're left-handed, you hate life. So as a left-handed person, I'm keenly aware of this. If you're a right-handed person, you probably never realized that this was a struggle prior to now. That being said, I'm actually genuinely curious. Your characters, are they Southpaw or standard?
I'm a lefty, and Scott once said to me, make all your characters lefty. I do, because he's a lefty, and so now my characters stay lefty.
That's right. Increase the percentage in the world.
Yeah.
I think Galen would honestly be pretty ambidextrous. Like, probably favoring a little bit his right, but for the most part, he's good with both.
Uh-huh. I wonder how we got that
Probably goes
practice.
stock standard.
Yep. Makes sense. You know.
Which is interesting, actually, because if Tristan was attending a classic joust using a lance in the left hand, well,
You'd have to cross breast that, wouldn't you?
yeah, I'm fairly certain he'd kill a person.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not acceptable in tournament jousting to do that. You have to have the joust in your right and your shield in your left.
I mean, it's actually kind of convenient though, because it means you're a switch hitter, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it's pretty, because I imagine that your character, while offhand does impose penalties, I would actually DM Fiat the rule that you could actually use your lance in your right hand without penalty. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
because-
you're couching it as long as armor dependent. If you're couching just with your arm, but if your armor has a couch, then it depends, doesn't it?
I mean, I have a couch in my living room. Does that matter?
Couching a lance is the act of when it's just down.
Yeah.
And some armors have like hooks.
Yeah. I'm just teasing, of course. So we thought Rory was a lefty at first, Josh, and then she disappointed me. I mean, we realized otherwise. So when you go in and Jake, what you notice inside this room is it's set up, and of course it's set up cleanly. So the seats in the front are 5 wide, and it goes 6 rows deep, meaning that you could have 30 people sitting inside here. There is no global pandemic right now, so they're not incredibly far apart from one another. It's one of those things where if you were sitting there, you could easily turn to your side, and the other person's kind of like, right there, and just wide enough that you could walk sideways up and down the aisles of these seats. So would your character walking in and you're the only one in the room when you go into when you kind of give the direction, oh, it's room blah 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 blah, and you find your way down there because everything's designed standardized enough you could find your way without a map or somebody leading you. Would you go in and take a seat? Would you stand? What would you do? Oh yeah, and there is again a chalkboard on the back side, on the front side against the wall. Go ahead.
Yeah, he'd probably walk into probably the first or second road, sit down, and while there's nobody in the room, he'd start getting out some books and having a read through stuff that he's already got with him.
Cool. So so he's just gonna kind of go through the details, whatever he has with him, and just kind of reading into it. The next person walking into the room will be Tesh's character. So he comes walking in a couple moments. I would say like a few minutes later, his character will come walking in. So it's important to note, Tesh, that when you walk in, you see second row, probably second from the right. So and you're coming in from the right side wall. So when you walk in, it's just a little bit when you look to the right of where you are, because the door itself is towards the back of the room, as to not be an interruption. So somebody walk in or out in the middle of a presentation. Yeah. When you walk in a little bit to your right, you see a form kind of sitting there. Very quickly, you're able to ascertain this person is a parent. Jake, how old is your character?
He's young. He's only like it's been like what 2 years since his 20th birthday or something. You said so he'd be like 22.
Okay, so 22 years old. So again, while to a non-parent, and even again, sometimes the parent, it can be difficult to identify that they are parent because they look so human. You can pretty quickly ascertain based off the garb and whatnot that they're wearing that this person's most likely parent. So you of course hear the door itself, which was not closed. You could hear footsteps coming in, Jake, and the two of you notice each other for the first time. So
I should mention, I forgot to say my age earlier. Galen is 27 as it stands. So he's a bit of an older member of the military. Oh, not older, but most people in Climë, if they choose to go into Climë, are a lot younger than he is. And he would probably just go and sit in.
How old are you again? Sorry.
Pardon?
How old?
27.
27. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he would go sit in as close to sort of dead center of the room, maybe a little bit forward towards the front, but in the middle of the room.
Okay. So you make your way in. Aside from acknowledging one another, maybe even like a head nod.
Yeah, he would probably do a head nod because it's a briefing. He doesn't know this person's rank yet, but I imagine a quick glance will know he's at least high.
Oh yeah, you can tell immediately based off the clothing that they're wearing. And I've never defined what this looks like because it hasn't mattered, and so I'm not going to define it now. Maybe next week or the week after that, I'll have it defined for you. But you can clearly tell that they're wearing an officer's garb, at least for inside a place like this. They're going to be wearing a more formal wear, right? So
it'll be like a respectful nod then, and then he'll go sit down.
Yep. No need to immediately salute just because there's an officer there or something like that, right?
Yeah, I imagined not.
Yeah. So anyways, you go over there, you sit down or whatever it is. So funny enough, you're probably sitting like one seat to the left of and behind his character. Nothing crazy.
Probably, honestly.
Yeah. And so you guys say anything to one another, Jake, or no?
No, there'd be just that nod of acknowledgement, and then Galen would just hear like a quill scratching away at some parchment.
Okay. And the last person to come walking in will, of course, be Tristan. Tristan, when you come walking in, one of the things that you guys can note about him, just because it is important to remind that it's a little bit different, is that Tristan looks strange for a parent, with a different color skin tone and so on and so forth. It kind of catches you off guard. Yes, sweetheart.
Yes, Tristan's got a sort of pinkish hue to his skin, which obviously is not common among Perrin. And if you were to look very carefully, you'd also note that he has slightly more pronounced canines. But it's not like you see them and you're like, those are fangs or anything like that.
Yeah.
black hair. Other than that, he looks kind of pretty much like your average sort of Perrin. You can't tell because he's wearing plate armor what his build is like, but he is clearly tall. And he has got a lovely, like, sort of feathered, furred cloak.
Yep. I also would note that he would have, Galen would have taken his pack and, at the very least, the chakrams off of his hip and his weapons, put them to the side as he entered the door. But he would have brought them all up to the room because that would have been something that he at all times has them around and near.
Yeah, as you enter, I would look up, give you like a nod, then go back to looking at my parchment before I kind of snap back to look at you again, just regarding you because something seems different, like you said. So he just like looks you in the eye, then just starts looking at you, raises his eyebrow, and then head down, starts scratching away again.
I think Galen would have less of that sort of reaction. There would be he'd look up, very slight pause, and then nod, and then back down to what he was doing at the desk. It wouldn't be as startling to him to see someone Perrin adjacent.
Triss, I think, would salute when he's being scrutinized by someone who's clearly an officer, bearing in mind he probably receives most of his orders from officers in the field around this sort of rank. Like he wouldn't really get that much higher than a centurion, I imagine. Out there, like that's kind of it.
It's funny. Somebody said a Purbo. I actually put inside the welcome to, where is it? What I write in there to be funny?
Turbo.
Hey,
What I write in here?
You did. You wrote a Hobrin.
Yeah, Hobrin. That's right. It's funny. Like Rayrin and Valrin and Narin.
Hobrin.
Everybody seems to like it. Have
Galen.
Ari. Yeah. Well. There's so many characters so far in Aurorum that are played by PCs that REN after the apostrophe in their name.
look who it is.
But so either way, so your character, you give you a little bit of a salute to whatever it is, and you would I imagine go and grab a seat.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, I did miss that conversation, so I'll have to try to go back and check the VOD later on to see what you guys talked about because Rory came in. But either way, so you go and you have a seat. You guys had a chatter with one another real quick? Nope. Or is that all just exchange? Okay.
No, just nods and various glances.
Viggo noted Tristan's unusual skin color, basically.
Yes. Gotcha. Cool. So you guys wait there expecting others to come filtering in. But ends up what happening is when you notice that the next person comes in, there is a woman that comes in. She is wearing military uniform, but not like armor or anything like that. She's not actually wearing like the typical breastplate that you would see on an officer of an officer of Paradel. There's that breastplate with like the markings and whatnot that you often find. She doesn't wear that, just as Viggo doesn't wear that. You know what I mean? And that's pretty common when you're down by when you're dealing with Dwayne. I mean, there's so many people that are you're on water all the time. Wearing something like breastplate is rather dangerous. So it's less common to find that stuff here. It's more common to find in places like Vala or Leiden or like the Delegas and so on and so forth, where you're like more actively in like a war. So anyways, she comes walking in, and she shuts the door of the step behind her. As she walks over towards the front to get everybody's attention, you're able to kind of like take her in. So she's clearly a Perrin. She probably looks like she's at about her late 70s or early 80s, which because Perrin lives significantly longer than humans. That's just past middle-aged. For her, it's not like she's, getting venerable or anything like that. It's just past middle-aged for Perrin. I think it might be old for them. So, she has like a head of gray hair with a couple of still like dark streaks inside there, where the color has not completely changed over to gray. She has a bit of wrinkling to her face. She stands. She's not incredibly tall, which again is probably a good thing for somebody that served on a ship. She's not incredibly tall. She stands at about a 5'3". her build is rather athletic with maybe a little bit of extra weight on her, working more of an office job rather than the more physical one she had done prior in her youth. And again, she's wearing kind of like her officer's uniform, showing the fact that she happens to be a battle commander, right? So this is somebody of a decent rank. As she makes her way around, she looks at you. Her eyes are blue in color. The age is starting to give them a bit of a faded look as well. There we go. She just entered middle-aged if you said 70. I said 70 to, so she is middle-aged. My apologies. So old at 93, thank you. So again, she's middle-aged because she's late 70s. Wait, what did I just say she was? She was
Late 70s to 80s.
Yeah, that's what I thought I said. Okay. So she's well into middle-aged then. Cool. And again, so her eyes are actually still sharp blue. Never mind. Her eyes are still a very sharp blue color. Either way, so she makes her way around. She does have, of course, strapped to her hip, her trusted bastard sword, which is something that's pretty standard for officers in the military. I think actually Jake's character also has a bastard sword, doesn't he?
No.
Gallon does.
Oh, Gallon has a bastard sword. My apologies.
Yeah.
But Jake, you do not carry a bastard sword.
No.
Are you even proficient? With one?
He just carries the bastard.
Nope.
Are you not proficient with melee weapons? Martial weapons.
Nope.
Doesn't want to reveal his secrets to you. Thank you very much.
I honestly don't recall.
No, it's
That's why
simple.
Simple
I
and okay, cool. Yeah, you're fine.
Mhm.
Awesome. So you would not have a bastard sword on your person then, obviously. Which is again, it's not mandatory. It's very traditional, right? So and your character's not as traditional officer, anyways. So she makes her way around to the front and turns to bring her attention to. There's no like desk or anything like up there to something to kind of point out. There is, of course, a chalkboard as I had previously described. She turns her attention to each of you and says, thank you for making your travels to come all the way here. I know some of you traveled a bit far, and some of you had other details that you were working on interrupted to join me here today. Did you get an opportunity to introduce yourself to one another? And now, before we go on, this is unusual. Tesh, you have absolutely been in briefings with this few of people. Absolutely. No question. Because of your specified training. You were actually in a group of very small people. At most, you were, oh God, rattling my brain here. I hope I'm saying this right. I think at most you were 8, but you were also broken down to smaller groups here and there, or maybe it was 9.
Yeah.
So that was the group that you had trained with, right? I think it was 8 or 9. I'm so sorry. That number will be defined later on. But so you were easily in small groups like this. So in your mind, this is not unusual, but perhaps unusual considering that you're not with any of the people that you trained with before. The other two of you would generally have much more than this, especially considering what rank of person you're speaking to. They would usually speak to a much wider array of people. Either way, she said, did you have an opportunity to introduce yourselves to one another?
What do you refer? I don't know if it's. What do they refer to? Like you refer to a superior like a sir if they're a male. Is it different for a female?
Yeah, sir or ma'am.
No.
Either one works. Yeah. So.
Viggo would just say, "No, ma'am, we
Okay.
have not."
Yep. I actually should probably because we do actually have people that are neither male nor female. I actually should come up with a hey chat. Why don't we throw it to you guys? You love Paradel so much. That's why we have an Inclement campaign. What is a gender neutral term to show out of respect to the officer? That's neither sir nor ma'am. So you can go with kind of like a gender neutral. So it's either respectable to use the gendered or the non-gendered one equally interchangeably, and certainly respectable for somebody that happens to adhere to neither of those pronouns, if you will. But back to the game. So you and nothing like Zer, because there's too many memes around that, and it's not an accepted term in any culture, at least as of right now. So don't want to make it into a laughable thing. So we'll avoid something like say Zer, right? So back to you guys. You said no, ma'am. So she turns to you and says, so she turns to you guys and she says, then take the opportunity. You'll be getting to know each other very well over the years, but simple introductions should at least be in order. And she looks specifically to Jake's character because, he is the ranking one here.
Yeah, at that, he stands up, turns around, and he says, Viggo Medahina, battle technician, tactician.
Battle technician? Uh-oh. He's like, repairing the ray guns on the ship.
Galen would then stand up and Galen Idrivor. Excellent.
Tristan the champion.
Does he stand up or does he say it from a sitting position?
He sits down. He's not super familiar on what the proper protocol should be here.
I love this.
Yep. So
they kind of do their workout in the boonies.
Yep. You remain sitting. Do you say anything about that, Jake, or no?
I do not.
Okay. She sees him sitting there, and as she sees him sitting here, she says, Tristan, you actually come with a degree of honors to your name. Apparently, you're an accomplished rider, a skilled warrior, and you take orders very well. Am I mistaken?
No, ma'am.
However, it seems as though customs are at a loss for you. She looks to Viggo and says, perhaps a bit of training is in order for him as well. Everybody can sit.
Yeah,
Like he clearly doesn't understand what's said, and then when she's like everyone can sit, he does
he
does
oh,
the
shit. Oh wait, okay. Yeah, I've done that before.
he's like shit, I've just made a bad impression.
I love that.
And it's funny too because again, we'll get into the personalities later on. But so she looks at the three of you and says, the three of you were called together because there are certain important details that have been going on in Dween's controlled regions that need to be looked after by a more caring and dedicated hand than sending in simply a troop of river guard or the like to do so. So you've been pulled from your respective fields to assist in these matters. How experienced are each of you outside of Dween itself? Or how experienced do each of you feel you are outside of Dween itself, is what she says. A question of perspective as opposed to a fact.
I've had, Galen would just say, I've had multiple years of experience fighting in areas other than Dween.
She nods.
I have traveled around Paradel.
She actually will look to you specifically and say, correct me if I'm wrong, you have yet to see actual combat.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever had to take an enemy's life?
I have not yet.
She nods and says, perhaps idealistic then. I understand why you were sent to me. I hope that you were able to maintain this degree of separation from such duties. However, I fear it is likely not the case. And then she turns to, what's his name there? I'm trying to get the names down. Tristan.
As a member of the River Guard, I've spent several months traveling along the various rivers connected to in here. I haven't spent a huge amount of time in cities, however. I was raised north of Chesetel.
That's right. You were actually born in Paradel. You're a strange lot, the three of you. But nonetheless, I'm glad that you're all sent my way. Each of you have your own specialties, as I've said beforehand, so let's get down to what matters here. As you know, the River King controls all of the rivers that pretty much run throughout... Oh. I was looking at the cameras. I was like...
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because you said it away from your mic, Neil, it like echoed just the right amount to sound like it was coming from just some
She
direction.
doesn't really respond to noises like that. She only listens to her voice, to her name.
Okay.
Sorry. She says controls all of the rivers that happen to flow throughout Paradel. No matter where it is that they happen to lie. To those of you that are a little bit more educated on this matter, probably Jake's character, you actually know that's not, or actually even Neil's character, because of being a part of the River Guard, you know it's not entirely true. That's still a matter of debate. But you know, at the very least, if it connects here, that is true. She says some of these rivers are in a degree of degradation, suffering through various degrees of degradation, whether it be through their structure or through the challenges set forth by the locals. I use the term locals rather loosely. My first task for the three of you is actually to go hand a bit of a sensitive matter. I do have to ask. Have any of you ever heard of the Gate?
History check.
That would actually be a yes, a history check would be a high one. Knowledge local would be a high one, and I don't think there are any other options.
I don't know if I can roll for that then. Oh wait, no. Virgil can. Give me a second.
I don't have a skill point in either, so I'm not gonna roll.
So if I have to piece on
21.
that.
So
Well, you wouldn't have
history- Okay.
you wouldn't have the 6 seconds in this matter.
Okay.
Nope. Virgil doesn't know.
Okay, and you said you don't have history, Neil.
No, don't have history or local.
Cool. So, Jake, what you were able to gather with this is you're able to gather, like, you've heard rumors of a place called the Gate, but it's one of those things where you're like, it might exist, it might not exist. You know, there's Paradel's so huge. There's many different places that could or couldn't exist that here, so on and so forth. So, I don't know how you would respond to that, but it's one of those like whispers. But you don't really know much by way of details. Certainly not anywhere near as much as you know as a player of the campaign. So
Yeah. He would just state only rumors, man.
she nods and says, there's a reason for that. Well, let me just put aside any rumors and tell you simply, the Gates does in fact exist. It does in fact exist. It is something that exists along one of the rivers very far to the north of here. The Gate itself is having a bit of an issue going along in its area, and so it's requested aid in the ways that it can be received. The reason why you're being put on this task, and I do apologize, and I am actually apologizing for this, the reason why you're being put on this task first is to test whether or not the three of you are able to work well with one another. A certain amount of supply needs to be delivered up to the Gate, and it's being supplied for by Dween. Personally, I think it should be supplied for by where it is the Gate is located in Paradia, but nonetheless, it is being supplied for by Dween. The supplies need to be brought there. They need to be brought there safely. They need to be secured while they're being unloaded into the Gates. And then you're going to have to stick around for a short period of time while a small amount of construction is handled. And then you're going to be able to return home. And there we can kind of get into the meat of what it is that you're going to be doing under my leadership. What do you know of the Gate? She says, looking to the three of you, but even though Viggo was the only one that responded. Very little, Jake.
Nothing. Ma'am. Oh. Sorry, I was just reading the chat. Nothing, ma'am.
Viggo just echoes that.
She nods and says, in short, it's a compound that exists inside of a swamp. You can imagine what kind of construction they need done there. The three of you are very capable, and so I've called upon you you have been sent to me for a reason. going to give you details for when it is that you are heading out and for the number of crates you're going to be looking after. But I do expect the three of you get familiar with one another. In my opinion, perhaps a bit of conversation. When our meeting here is done, you can stick around and get to know one another a bit, and then we'll be meeting tomorrow morning for when you're leaving off with the barge. When you get there, I want it to be known that while the warden of the gate will believe that as you are in the realm that belongs to him, that is under his, that while you're in the realm that he looks after, he will believe that you are underneath his commands. Let it be known now, you are absolutely not under his commands. His rank compared to mine should not be misunderstood. His rank compared to mine should not make you even have the slightest inkling of belief that he has command over you. You are serving in Climë to which province?
Dween here.
And where is the gates located?
Along the borders of a river.
Therefore, you are under my command. If he gives you any orders outside of the ones that I give you, you politely inform him that you will not be doing that order. Now, she looks to Viggo. If it seems as though it is something that is reasonable, something that you can be amicable and aid, you are absolutely welcome to do so. We are not looking to cause any degree of disagreements while you are there, but it is important to note that you have direct orders and that you are to follow those to the best of your ability to be as successful as possible for the benefits of Dween and all of Paradel, not to be his additional guard or his workhorses. I need you in a good state. He will work you to a state well beneath that. As for what your responsibilities are, you are transporting goods. You're going to see to it that they're delivered from here to there safely. While they are there, you're going to guard the goods while they're unloaded. They have one, I believe, maybe two. I'll look into these details and get them delivered to you. Projects that they're going to look after that they need to be done. It has something to do with a degree of maintaining tunneling to some subterranean. What's the word I'm looking for? Cavern. Sorry. Some subterranean cavern, a degree of tunneling to it. You need to see to it that they are well enough guarded while that is maintained, and that the integrity of the river itself is not impacted by them doing this. It is not your job to be doing any tunneling, and it is not your job to be doing any exploration into this subterranean cavern. So, if they are looking for your assistance down there, again, she looks to Viggo, I will leave it to your discretion in this matter. But you're to oversee that it is done safely, that they are guarded. The swamps themselves are known to be dangerous. Have any of you traveled through swamps in the past?
No, ma'am.
No.
Is that likely at all? Areas of Paradel swampy? Or Perenhir, Dween?
No, they're plains. They're nice. She says, swamps are renowned for, especially these swamps, are renowned for having sturges. If you're not familiar with what sturges are, you're going to need to appropriately dress and cover yourself and find whatever repellents you can along the way. The best repellents we have, unfortunately, are also attractors to... Do any of you know what a scrag is? And for this, you're going to have to roll yourself, I believe, for trolls, it's a knowledge nature.
Knowledge, nature, where is Virgil? Ooh, he has a +2 on this one, and he still failed. Man, he's just rolling terribly. I mean, honestly, this works because it wouldn't really be able to tell me properly at the moment anyway, given I don't know that I'm allowed to show him yet.
And I assume you can't roll, Neil?
No.
Okay. So, Jake, actually would be like, again, it's one of those things where you've heard the word, but top of your head, you don't exactly remember what they are. And when she when she sees kind of like the shaking of heads or no ma'ams, she simply says, "It's a type of troll." Now, Jake, with your knowledge nature check right there, you know about trolls. You know trolls are large, semi-intelligent creatures that are capable of rapid healing, extremely dangerous, extremely violent, and most importantly, they are vulnerable to certain types. You know, there's ways to kind of like impede their injury, but what that is off the top of your head, you can't quite remember, but you're pretty sure you have books back home that where you can kind of like reference this to figure it out, right? So she says they're a type of troll. So you'll be dealing with sturges and you'll be dealing with trolls. Most likely the case. There could be other things that exist inside there to deal with, but those are the chief concerns and why it is that we're sending you to look after them. Any questions about what it is that your responsibilities are, where it is that you're going, or the lines of commands that exist?
No, ma'am, you've made it very clear.
Do these two have permission to see my full range of abilities?
She looks at you. She looks at you for a moment and she says, yes, that actually reminds me. After the three of you get to know one another, I would actually prefer sometime this evening, if I can see you privately. I have heard, but not witnessed. And so I would like to see these things for myself. Since you're going to be under my commands, I would like to know exactly how wide range your abilities really are.
Of course.
And then she says, kind of like looking back to the group, she says, yes.
Understood.
And then continuing that, as soon as you say understood, she says, I want it to be known that the Excellent here has had a very specialized training, something that he was hand-selected to participate in. This is a new type of training that our nation is looking into. It's experimental at best, and we don't know exactly where things will go. But most importantly, it is classified. As a matter of fact, it is more highly classified than the existence and goings-on of a location like the Gate. So, while maybe one of you have heard measly rumors of the Gate, you know nothing about it. Its location, what they do there, etc., etc. More highly classified. I expect you to take whatever details you happen to glean from Galen along the way to the grave, unless directed to otherwise. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Unless there's any other questions, should that linger for a second or two? When nobody asks any?
You mentioned the rank of the warden doesn't matter. What rank was it? Just to prepare myself.
The warden's a field commander.
Okay.
Which is actually above her rank.
Yeah, that's why Trish not like you.
Yep. So she doesn't say anything or give any expression beyond that, leaves it be. If nobody else says anything after a second or two, she then says, then to continue the conversation of rank, I'm sure you all understand where it is that lies between the three of you. I expect most decision making to defer to the battle tactician, as that is what you are trained to do. Otherwise, it is your outfit, she says, looking to Viggo. I expect everybody to be appropriately behaved when abroad. I expect to have a full reports returned when things are done. But most importantly, I expect to hear nothing but the utmost respectful responses from anybody that you interact with in the future.
Understood, ma'am. And he'll salute.
She nods to the three of you and says, don't disappoint me in this matter. I have much work that I want to do with the three of you in the future. So, don't fuck this up. And then she'll turn to leave. As she grabs the door handle, for anybody, unless anybody says anything, as she grabs the door handle, she'll turn back and say, "Ah, yes. Just after dawn, you can meet me by the rivers, or by the delta, like where the rivers comes to. Yeah, meet me by the delta, and then she'll leave."
So once the door has fully shut again, Galen would actually go up to it and make sure it's shut properly, just in case. I assume that speech got both of you quite curious about my capabilities.
I really want to hear this, but I also really have to pee, so I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah.
Too much coffee.
Right.
I have been trained in a certain type of magic. It's new, and for lack of a better term, alien. Would alien be alien would be a term because it just means different or not from here. It's what's a better term that would be more middle agey? It's
alien probably was reasonably commonly used in terms of someone from a different country.
yeah, it's fairly different to normal magic. Well, it's probably easier to show you. And he'll stand up straight and this is a swift action, so extremely quickly his entire body from head to toe gets covered in a thin layer of crystal, so much so that it's covers his features of his face, it covers his armor. It's almost looks like you could see through him if it was a little more clear than it is, but it's a deep blue crystal from head to toe. And he puts his arms out a little bit, and spikes grow on his arms, on his shoulders, on his elbows, and he produces a crystalline blade, almost like a shard in his hand. Says, "This is what I mostly use for combat, and I can generate them." He'll drop one on the ground. It'll dissipate as soon as it hits the surface on the ground, and he'll produce another one in his hand.
When you do that, you see Viggo. His hand snaps to his desk, and he pulls up like a notebook, grabs a
Han
quill,
Solo
and
blaster.
slowly raises it, and then remembers what he was told. Puts the pen back down, snaps the book shut.
Thank you.
That's fascinating. Never read anything about anything like this before.
And he'll immediately dissipate it just as quickly as it was there, and as if nothing changed.
When you do such an overt sign of like this is quite obviously magic, but not expected at all. You know, what little magic Tristan has seen has maybe been like a bolt of flame or something like that, you know, being tossed at someone. So deceptively quickly, he's on his feet. The chair that he was standing on is tipped over on the floor, and he's got his pick in his hand. And then, like, very swiftly, he realizes, oh, right. Like, somewhat awkwardly puts it back in its loop and is like...
He'll look to Tristan and say, "It can be startling at first, but you'll get used to it. Now, I've been instructed that I cannot change in front of others, which is why I asked permission first." Oh, you're muted, Scott?
I said, dude, I just sat down on mobile. I just saw myself sit down on mobile. That's how long the delay is. Like, you saw me sit down, and then when you saw me trying to talk while I'm muted, that's when I started sitting down. That's how bad mobile Twitch is. Go ahead, continue.
So that is why I asked permission to demonstrate these abilities. Now, if I use them in combat, it's likely I will either stay in completely... I will stay in suit, or I will stay out of suit. Unless I have an opportunity to change where... to transfer in a situation where I am not going to be observed by anyone that will... And he pauses. Anyone that will have the opportunity to tell the tale, I will likely stay in either one form or the other.
quick question, Tash. You
Yep.
dropped the thing on the ground and it dissipated. Question about that.
Yes.
Because this is a matter of thematics, because it's going to be a huge thing moving forward. When it drops on the ground, does it clatter to the ground and then dissipate like wisps? Does it fade away into nothing? Does it shatter onto the ground into little pieces that dissipate? Does it
So
almost like
it
turn
would-
into like a liquid that like how does it?
So I imagine it's one of those things where, because of the nature of it, it's so sharp it would jab into the ground and then sort of disintegrate away. But there's no mark on the ground because it wasn't. It's not a target. It's not a living thing that he's hit with it. It just sort of, and I do imagine when it shatters, it is that sort of like crumbling to dust that just blows away. Sort of
Thanos
thing.
snap.
Sort of a little bit bigger and heavier than that. Like it actually does crumble down and then fade away. But yeah, that sort of style.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry. You had more or less fed a line to them for them to respond.
He basically just said it's startling at first, but you will get used to it. I will not be transforming in front of others. So I'll either be in suit or out of suit for whatever we engage in.
Probably a smart idea not to show it off.
Oh, and there's one more thing. And he'll actually reach into he'll like pull his pack down to one side and open it up. And not even reaching in, he'll just open it up. And a small crystal with little legs crawls out onto his shoulder. This is Virgil. Now, Virgil is not that powerful yet. I can connect with him and feel telepathically and communicate with him telepathically. But as he grows and gets stronger, he will be able to communicate with both of you as well, and he will be a valuable tool.
Tristan
see,
looks towards his
yeah, that's-
superior officer for guidance there. Like he glances towards Viggo uncomfortably.
When he sees her uncomfortable, he'll just say, a portion of my personality was annexed into this crystal. It is another creature, but it is me.
You
Tristan's
can,
like,
you can see Viggo is he tenses up and starts to get a bit you can tell he really wants to pick his notebook back up, put it that way, and he's fighting with himself not to do it. It's a portion of your personality in the crystal.
Yes. Part of
Did
my
you
training involved.
make it yourself?
It was part of my training, yes. Once my affinity for
Ah,
the crystals, and he'll sort of show his braces, became known. It was where my training led.
well, I look forward to seeing more of your abilities.
And I look forward to working with both of you. If you have been granted the ability, the what's the right term? Have you been granted the authority to know this? Then I imagine
Clearance.
your skills are quite formidable as yourselves. Clearance, yeah. To know this, then I imagine your skills are quite formidable as well.
poor
and he'll-
Tristan's like,
he'll like just open his bag and let Virgil crawl back in, and then hoist it back up on his bag.
poor Tristan's
Back.
like, I'm just sit on a horse with a stick.
He does a fuck ton of damage though.
He's scary.
So, do you do anything else other than the creepy doll and the full body crystal thing, which you can't do when anyone else is watching?
My Aegis is quite adaptable. At the moment, you probably noticed the various spikes, and I had that were growing on it in strategic places. They help me grapple easier or fight in close combat, but I can very quickly adjust that to say moving faster, breathing underwater, swimming incredibly fast, even climbing a wall as if I was walking.
A living suit of armor, then, I guess.
Indeed. I believe that was the intention in the direction of my training.
I feel bad because somebody like Tristan, this would be like too much for him if it wasn't for the fact that if it wasn't for the fact that he spent time, fighting undead, which his
Oh
whole
yeah, thank God
childhood-
he's done that. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, he very nearly was like, "Is this necromancy?" When he saw the little doll thing, because that's his.
That's
You
fair.
know.
You say doll thing. Do you mind describing that a little bit?
It was described
As
as
a
like
doll?
a crystal
No,
with
it's a
arms and
crystal.
legs.
So, think of it like
arms.
no, it has little legs. Like it
Ah.
has very spider-like, probably 4. Actually, no, I'm going to say 5 legs, to be
Okay.
just that little bit extra of
It's like
unusual.
a little crab.
Yeah, and the crystal is finely carved now. I would say, I was trying to show one thing. I would say about let's say 10-ish centimeters tall and only about 2 to 3 wide. But the weirdest thing is you can almost tell where it's looking, even though it has no form of eye or anything. When it
how
looked at
unpleasant.
you, you can tell. Same with when he was in his suit. His face would have no features, but you would know when he was looking at you. You could just sort of intuit it. You could feel it almost.
So it's about 4 inches tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like Scott's penis. in
Yeah,
crystal
about that
form.
big. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And
Oh,
then
that's interesting.
the legs on it, just because everybody likes to describe it a little bit differently. What do the legs look like? It's funny is I always imagine it.
Legs.
I always imagine it as if like the crystal. This is just how I've done it in the past. The crystal stands erect, right? So as opposed to like being sideways, it stands erect, and there's like 8 little spider legs that come out of it. But the spider legs are like so small, it's almost like stick figure legs coming out of it. But again, it's your crystal. You decide it.
I'm thinking very much like that, but they almost form. It's almost like it's weird to look at these legs that are moving when it's attached physically, almost like it's melded out of the crystal that is very much a solid crystal. But these legs, so there's like a classic 4 either side and then 1 in the front. Just sort of like I've got actually a picture I can throw up in the spoilers.
Wait, hold on.
From,
You're saying it's a 9-legged spider? So
No,
it's a,
5.
So it's a male.
5-legged.
Oh.
5-legged.
So it's a male then.
God damn it. I'll show you a picture of what I mean. If you've played the second Metroid Prime, the Ing, how they move is probably a great
If you have
description.
a GIF,
I do
or
have a picture
clip
I'm about to throw in chat.
in spoilers. Yeah.
In spoilers, yeah. I don't know if I can get a GIF, but I can definitely get a picture of them.
While he's looking for that, Viggo just says, "That's interesting. Well, so there's no surprises. If the time calls for it, I can change my form to have slightly more animalistic features. But nothing as interesting as your crystal. What about you?
I look forward to seeing your abilities. And I put
Tristan.
the picture in spoilers.
That's cool. I like. What color is the crystal again?
Sort of deep blue, almost like that
Oh,
sort
that's
of
right.
deep ice.
We discussed that. We discussed that beforehand. Yep, deep blue color. That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. Because when you put the skin over yourself, it's translucent.
Yes, and it almost looks like you could see through it if it was thinner, but you can't quite.
Yeah. So for the super translucence, actually the image, if you know what this is in real life, that Tesh and I discussed, and kind of like the inspiration for like the way it looks for the swift action one, where he can kind of like just put a thing coating over himself. It's called aerogel. Is the word?
Yes, aerogel. That's the one.
It looks like aerogel, which if you don't know what aerogel is, it's a substance that is, I think it's like 99.9% air and like 0.1% I
So
think like silicone or something like
I've
that.
got a picture I'll chuck in the spoilers as well. It's a little more deep blue than this, but that's sort of for the consistency to it.
Yeah. Yeah, aerogel. If you don't know what it is, totally like watch like a YouTube video about what it is. Like Veritasium, there's a couple of cool videos about it or whatever. But it's just a really really cool substance that exists in real life. Like if you look at that picture that Tesh posted inside in Discord in the spoilers chat. Okay, I'll pop Discord in here for you. It is an amazing substance that really exists, and it's insane what it's able to do. Like it's crazy the science behind it. But anyways, silica, not silicone. Thank you, appreciate it. It is so it is made out of silica though. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Tesh. I interrupted your description.
No, that was pretty much it. It's that sort of, but it's a deeper blue and a little bit more solid, but not much.
Cool. And then back to the campaign. So, Jake, you said I can make myself a bit more animalistic, but nothing so extreme as that. And then what about you? He says, looking over to Tristan.
Tristan would like scratch his head. Well,
I'm a good horseman. Good with a lance.
I learned a lot.
Would I know if a horse would be useful in the swamps? I imagine it would be because it keeps you out of it.
You're not familiar with that sort of a thing.
Oh,
So
I
horses
wouldn't know,
horses
yeah.
can be
Never
both
mind.
a boon and a bane in a swamp.
Okay, cool.
So because think about it, they're large and their legs are like they don't end in like a padded wide foot. It's kind of like a big stick, so I could easily get like. Don't you know who like oh god, what's the name of that movie? It's like
Oh god.
Artax.
By Alex.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, what was it? Oh god, what's the name of the character? Is it Artax? Is
Oh, fucking never-ending story.
Never-ending
God,
story.
that scene is traumatic. Okay, let's not do that scene.
God, yeah, right. And then the horse dies. It
That's
dies.
fucking
Spoiler
horrible.
alert.
Let's not do that.
The horse dies, and he's pulling it. Come on, you can
no,
do it,
no,
Artax. Come on, you can. And then it dies, and he sobs. Oh. Yeah, that's a great scene. Great scene. Good,
Anyway,
good kid
after
acting in that.
Tristan says what he does. It was just see. Actually, I'm gonna do just in case. I'm gonna do a sense motive just to sort of if he gets the idea that Tristan's almost a little bit out of his he's gonna basically just. I look forward to seeing you in combat. Then, if you've been put with these diverse of a skill sets, it's a pleasure to meet you both.
You as well. Were you part of the River Guard, Tristan?
Well, I thought I still was. Though
I would think technically we are, but not quite. One step adjacent to, I believe.
River Guard adjacent.
River Guard adjacent, yeah.
So how are we escorting these supplies? Is it by boat?
Raft, yeah. Well, barge, yeah.
Raft, yeah.
Yes, but by water.
Okay, so your horse used to the water?
of course, Garrett can swim if needs be, and he's more than happy to be on a barge. Doesn't even need to be bound or blinded.
Perfect.
Perfect course for someone at the River Guard.
But if you're going to be working with him, particularly if we're going to be fighting, though it didn't sound like that is what was desired, you probably ought to meet him.
It's probably a good choice, actually. Indeed.
Clearly more in his comfort zone. Tristan will head towards the door and say, "Don't worry, I'll tell him not to bite you."
Galen will
There's a
gather up all
horse.
his stuff and gather up all his stuff, put on backpack, everything, and head on down following Tristan.
Okay, so you guys, as you said, head on down to South Park. You're gonna have yourself a time. So you go heading out and out of the facility. Is there any side chatter amongst your characters as you walk, or is it kind of like an awkward silence as the three of you walk for like a good 10, 12 minutes to get out of the building and over to the stable?
I mean, there probably is,
Uh,
but for me, there's nothing significant, you know, I specifically want to talk about.
Gotcha.
yeah, Galen, it would likely be sort of meaningless, small talk about like he might mention like the weather or the ride into town or something like that, but nothing important. Nothing needs to be role played.
Okay. So you guys make some small chatter about the place. Maybe it's the first time inside the city, or so on and so forth, or it's kind of strange that all of you are kind of like thrown together, whatever it might be. And
Yeah,
eventually make
stuff like
yourself
that.
over to the stable. And when you actually get to the stable, you can see that they're while you're there, by I suppose convenience or lack thereof, there's a farrier that's kind of like pulled up a seat and has one of your horse's legs kind of like lifted up and is resting on like a block next to them. So they're really like kind of like digging in with their chisel tool to investigate, kind of cleaning it out and investigating the condition of the horseshoe that's there. And there is a veterinarian that has the horse's mouth open on the other side, and they're checking it out. So it's kind of like two mechanics got the car open. Um, so when you go walking up, you can see that the horse is there. Immediately after seeing the horse, is get that look in its eye, like, can I bite him?
Juicy will step up and give him a pat and say, "Good boy. This is Karok. He's been with me for a lot longer than anyone else now."
The kind of like before anybody else is able to say anything, the veterinarian or animal doctor would say, "This is your horse."
Yes, he is.
Listen, I mean no disrespect in saying this, but how the hell did you get this horse?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but
Is it
my family's
arranged marriage?
No. It was a gift, a present from a very kind, noble man, in both senses of the word. He comes from my family's stock. There's not too many of them around.
Your family's stock.
Yes.
He gives you kind of like a look over and says, "You don't look to be of noble birth."
Well, my family aren't. They just breed, keep horses. Diarm, maybe you've heard of them.
Shakes his head. No. Your family is reserved, so
Yeah.
he shakes his head. No. Well, again, offense aside, but this is a damn fine steed that you have here. First and foremost, let me say that it is in the tip-top prime health. There's little I can say or suggest aside from, do you help to brush its teeth?
Typically only when he's done biting after combat.
Well, I imagine a bit of that does get caught in there, especially tabards. The fabric that they use it can be disastrous. But either way, I do suggest you give a bit more of a brushing to it. There's different types of branches and the like. If you don't already know, I can get you some details. But this is a fine specimen of it. You're not looking to sell it, are you?
Tristan smirks and will look at Karok and say, "What do you think about that boy?"
Oh, sorry.
He says, "No, thank you."
Well, he says, well, let me just say, I see that he's still intact. I don't know if you have to make a decision with your family or if it's something that you would have to do on the side, but if you were ever looking to breed him, make sure you come and find me.
He clearly eyes Karok nervously when he says the B word.
Yep. And sorry. Carrick actually wouldn't necessarily know what that means, because he doesn't
Of
speak
course
the
not.
language.
Yes, yeah.
And so he gives the horse, like another good look, like it's a fine horse. And, he walks off, licking his lips. That character's name is Scott.
God damn it, Scott! You
Fine
weirdo.
horse. What? I'm not weird. You just
He's
have
like,
to-
he's like, he's like, it's a good horse.
What? It's a fine horse. Can you not appreciate? Can you not appreciate a fine
Tris would then
horse?
walk each one of you through just like proffering a hand to go on his just above his nose on his head, and introduce the two of you, and tell him quite clearly no biting.
Oh, here comes the animal handling checks, though. So
There you go.
with my
No,
plus
it's not.
0,
That's
let's
not.
yeah.
Not good for me. It's really not good.
Why not?
Oh, because I have not good animal handling.
I did okay.
I want to see you roll it, Jake. Roll it for me.
Oh,
I
you
don't want-
chose
I don't
to
wanna roll.
roll it.
I'm
I'll give
choosing
you.
not to roll.
I'll assist.
Oh, that's not going to help.
Come on, you'll be fine. Look, he's got a +0 and he rolled a 16. You've got this.
Well,
I got a -3.
Neil being there automatically can, if he's not leaving you out to the wolves or even trying to entice
All right,
the
here
horse,
we go.
he can give you a +4. It's his steed.
No, there you go.
Oh, that minus though.
Yeah, if it was just you, it absolutely would bite you. But it's one of those things where as you move your hand forward, you can imagine he's sitting there, and what's the horse's name again? Karak. He says, Karak, and then he's like, no, just relax, it's fine, Karak. Relax, it's fine, he's fine. And eventually you get your hand there, and it sniffs your hand, and you're able to kind of like put like a hand on top of the nose for like a second or two, and you pull it back quickly, and Karak's kind of like, but that's because it being his steed, he's providing you a +4 in this matter because he's got a hand on it.
Yep.
Fine horse.
Otherwise, so that was just beautiful. So he that plays out, and then the farrier just kind of like stands up and says, "Well, I don't know who had put these horseshoes on before, but they're shit. It looks like you didn't exactly use quality horseshoes to begin with. They've been worn down like hell, and they were put on like shit. They could have lasted a bit longer, but clearly they sucked." Looks down at the horse, then looks back at you and goes, I could dress it up nice. You looking for some Valerian steel? What is it you want?
Just some new horseshoes, I think, would be
Perfect, actually.
Gives you kind of like a bit of a frown. Stock. That man walked away almost with a wet pair of trousers talking about this horse, and you're going to give it stock horseshoes? Rolls his eyes and shakes his head. Yep. I'll have it ready before morning.
He shrugs
how-
guiltily. Karak's like,
Would I have any idea how much this guy's like asking for the good
I mean,
stuff?
honestly, for quality horseshoes, because of like steel from Vala, and like the quality of the horseshoe, you're talking a couple gold, nothing like extreme. I mean, if this guy asked for 4 gold, it's one of those things where like, why are you breaking balls, bro? And that's even taking into account the fact that this is things in this city cost more than elsewhere because of it's a city, so.
Gallon would actually just say, if you need a little extra gold, I don't really have an issue maintaining my equipment.
Dude, a superior is already offering you handouts.
No, it's just
But
it's
what does he want
better
in
to have
return?
your no. It's
hands.
better to have your have you full as well equipped as you can be for the upcoming mission.
It's kind of her, but I was always taught not to go into debt.
Understood.
Okay.
Smart
Well,
move, Tristan. Smart.
Indeed. Well, if we're done here, I will go try and find the BC. I believe she requested. Yes.
Yes,
Requested
I
my
think
freedom.
I'll have a read up and see what we can do to guard against these sturges.
That's a good idea.
Actually, sir, I believe the BC said that we ought to bond. And I have not been to a tavern in a city ever. I believe that may
Is that
be
so?
a good place to start.
Galen would give Viggo a look and just. It's not a bad idea.
Well, we'll start there
Turn
then.
to the. He'll turn to the person that we were just talking to, the person at the stable. Just, where's the best place to get a drink?
If you want a drink, you can get one wherever the hell you want. You can't throw a stone without hitting a tavern or two. But
Well, where's the closest?
and then he nods to that and says, "Military compound. Pick a direction. You'll find one."
Fair enough.
Yep,
We'll
Viggo
pick a
just points.
direction.
Here we go. All right.
And then he does end that with, "Sir."
Yeah.
Um.
Okay.
So, anyways, you guys are. Tesh, do you go with them at first to join her later?
So yeah, he'll go find her later. He'll do this first.
Okay. Just don't smell
Tris-
like alcohol,
Tris-
right? Huh?
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Galen's not the sort to drink a lot. He'll like get one drink and sip it while they're drinking. That's the sort of thing he does.
Chris definitely quickly and with a good level of proficiency, actually, you can tell, strips off his armor and piles it in the stable. Like Eric said, and then he gives him a pat and says, "Guard."
Oh, it's awesome. All right, cool. So we you guys go off to the tavern where you're able to sit there and have a bit of a drink. It's up to you however much you want to spend for your character to have a drink. Don't go crazy. You can keep in the copper or the silver for expenditure unless your character wants something extremely extravagant. While Jake, your characters, I imagine, used to extravagant things. I also imagine you didn't you don't waste a lot of money on stuff like that. No, you have to have a degree of conservatism. Neil,
I have research to do.
I do know, Neil, that because you spent a decent amount of time at a deer for a little while, you might actually have a taste for a type of Adirian mead, if mead is your character's thing. It's quite floral. One of the cool things about it is that while it is, of course, mead, and there's lots of plains out there made out of honey, it is also aromatic and has a bit of flavor of the very common flower in a deer, which has a bit of a smell or flavor of honeysuckle. I don't know, is that something that your character would go for, or is he
Both
not more of a
him
mead
and Karok enjoy it.
person? Okay, there you
So
go.
Karok's not allowed it.
No.
Not after last time.
Carrick gets it. He's just not supposed to.
Yeah.
Carrick's that little dog that somehow gets on the counter. You're like, how the fuck did you? Anyways, so you make your way. So when you guys are there having the drink, and I don't know how much RP you guys want to dive into with this. It's actually the reason why I brought that up is specifically Galen. Galen, if you when he kind of like pops that bottle, because you yourself are not familiar with that at all. When he pops that bottle and pours it, you know, it's aromatic. The aroma of it would, of course, elicit certain memories from you. The smell of honeysuckle is, of course, something that's very familiar to you, not because of your own talents, mind you, but other people's.
Yeah. Interesting. Mind if I try some of that?
He definitely, as you are both superior officers, he would have poured you both cups if you
Oh, then
wanted.
yeah. That's likely what he'll do. His sipping drink on, but yeah, it's interesting. Strange tasting rather than smelling though, and he won't really dive into it much other than that. The strange tasting it. Tasting this rather than smelling it is what he'll say before just sort of leaving it. if you want to ask questions, you can, but he'll leave it there if no one says anything.
That's fine. Cool. So, any particular RP your characters want to have with one another about the anything at this point, or you just get to know each other a little bit?
One thing Viggo says to Tristan, he says, your skin is different. I can't place it.
Oh, Mum's from a deer, hobgoblin.
Ah, hobgoblin. You know, they were descended from the mole, actually. And he will start to try and speak to you in Glen.
Does your character even speak, Glenn?
He
You know what
speaks
would be
Perrin.
really funny?
He's Perrin through and through.
What's funny is you talk to him in Glyn, and Galen goes, you speak Glyn as well. In Glyn.
See, I see this. I don't know. My mind's eye sees it like the modern day, right? It's like walking up to somebody and being like, "Oh, what are you, Mexican or like no, Colombian?" Like, "Oh, hola, amigo, ¿qué pasa?" And they're like, I speak English. And then somebody else walks up like, "Hey!" And then they start going off, and they're like, "I'm the only one here that doesn't speak Spanish."
Great.
Young Viggo is not the most socially adept person. Put it that way.
Yeah. Tristan clearly looks confused, and then Gallant replies back, and he's like, "Is that Dalish?"
Come on, one of you must have heard some words from Mom. Wait,
Yeah,
Mom
of
was
course.
Mom was the hobgoblin, right?
Yes.
It's one of those things where you would know kind of like the structure, the overall sounds and so forth. But most importantly, you would only know the words that she would say when she was frustrated.
Oh no.
So he knows a couple of frustration words. He remembers a couple of words of like pet names to him when he was little, and remembers a couple of the songs that were sang to him when he was little in Glen. But it's not the sort of thing, any of those, not the sort of things that you tell to your new commanding officer.
Yep. You probably know like a couple of like either nursery rhymes or like little songs. You probably don't even know the correct translation of them, but you know the meaning of them and how to say them. That sort of a thing.
Viggo would just say, you don't speak it. Okay then. And then he just like immediately turns to Galen and starts like in Glyn is just like, so where did you learn to speak it? Yeah, I actually learned Glyn down in Sephora, and you just go on and on and on.
So he would actually probably he probably learned it after coming to Paradise. Like it was something he picked up just to make sure that he would. Yeah, an elective. he picked it up like it was something he deliberately thought to learn himself just to make things easier around the region. Given he was going into Climë, he felt like he might need to know it.
That being said, I actually just try to load up your character sheets real quick so I can check this. I imagine Viggo actually, because he's very smart and he's actually well trained in. You actually don't have ranks in linguistics. This is your intelligence. Never mind.
I have a rank in linguistics.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, you do. Okay, my apologies. I actually been trained in linguistics. I imagine that Galen has kind of like that plastic sounding way of speaking it as somebody who's been trained in it and has actually had speech like practice, not just book training, but has a degree, but very heavily accented and so on and so forth, but can maintain conversation. Again, it is one of those like, hola amigo, ¿qué pasa? And then moving on from there.
If he's that sort of
¿Dónde
practicing
estás?
linguistics, he might actually pick up a bit of an accent in his parent as well. An accent he's definitely tried to suppress, but an accent.
You've been here for years, but yes, you would definitely have an accent because
there would be some words, the occasional word, but it would be like the sort of thing where only if you knew linguistics would you ever pick up on that sort of thing.
So what would that be like? To pick
An
that
accent. Oh no, just the fact that you're
No,
trained in it is probably enough. Yeah.
Instinctive. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you would notice it just because you were born and raised in Paradel, and it's one of those things where all over Paradel, everybody speaks Paran, right? But there's like different provinces and different city states in each province, and even different regions of each province have their own accents to it. But his is none of those. His is foreigner. You know, like you can be like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, it's one of those things where when you hear Anno speak, you're clearly like foreigner. You know, like. You're not like, oh, Britain, Australia, no, foreigner, definitely foreigner, you know. But it's really good though, really, really good. It's on fleek. I don't know.
So yeah,
It's
he's
like,
definitely done work to suppress it, but not enough that someone who knows accents and knows language wouldn't be able to tell there's a foreign accent there.
Right, so as you're explaining that, Viggo, once again going back to Perrin, says, "And you were Tristan. I think I heard you were born in Paradel."
Yeah,
Like
I was born in Perennia, not far from Chesetel.
Oh, interesting. He would just say that he was also. I was also born in Perennia. Oslo.
Osto, and it's one of those.
Oslo.
It's one of those fun things where somebody could be like,
Well, technically,
actually, Osto's not a part of. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
Not too far away then, really.
Yeah, not far. Gallon, you weren't born in Paradel?
no, it was not. Part of my inclination was I came in from. There's a bit of a pause, and he goes, "Malta."
Ooh. Malta. Don't see many Maltese.
Well, they
Didn't
do a good
realise
job.
they had many Perrin.
Rather secluded they are.
I've got some.
I imagine the silence kind of hangs over the airport.
Yeah,
now.
it
there is
lingers for a
definitely,
bit
like, an
until
awkward silence, yeah.
and Tristan like takes note and he's like, "Well, you picked the right side," and then he'll raise his mug. Well, it's clear cut to him, right?
It's
They're
actually,
the bad guys.
honestly, Gallon would actually raise his glass and do the cheer to that. He wouldn't say anything,
Same
but he
for
would
me.
yep. There you go.
drink.
And everybody, water. So, so you pick the right side, and they all cheers to that. You can imagine from this point, conversation kind of breaks down a little bit into just a bit of chatter. I imagine there's some conversations that are clearly not had. Why did you come here for Malta? What family are you from before you became a Metahina?
It was awkward
all
enough the
those
fact
things,
that he admitted that we're just kind of like we'll
Yep.
push that
Exactly.
push that to the side.
And so as like that kind of breaks down, whatever. Of course, we'll have Tesh. You'll have Gallon go in to speak with her to show her, the abilities and whatnot. And we can kind of like role play that at the beginning of next session before we really dive into you guys meeting over at the barge to start heading north. But sorry for all the technical issues, everybody. That sucked. Like obviously we started off being a bit goofy because we're friends. We like to hang out with one another, so on and so forth. So. That was nice, but then like when we also had tech issues, it ended up becoming like a thing. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, what you can do is we call them tech issues, but realistically, if you hold on one second, I can just do
We're
this.
starting a GoFundMe for Tash, so that
Yeah.
No.
Doing
I'll
is,
figure out what's going on with my computer.
No, it's okay. It's just you just have a. There we go. We have tech issues, so it's one of those things where
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to deal with it and eat your fava beans.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
All right, so let's.
Once I let my camera reset, it should be fine. And then I know what I was overly ambitious, believing that the dev version of Chrome wouldn't crash my computer when the other one did, even though people said it wouldn't. I should have just trusted my gut and gone, nah, just go with something completely different until I figure out why it's crashing.
Well, I'm gonna have to go try to jump through a quick shower before I run off to work for this morning. So, or for noon is when I get there. Don't forget to pop in about half an hour over at in the Discord for the general chat. We're all gonna be able to chat about our tech issues and the opening session. But why don't we do a quick roundabout? Tesh, you first. What are you up to?
So I am planning, if all goes well, tomorrow to do some Monster Hunter. The new patch just dropped with the new monsters and stuff. So I'm excited about that. You can find me under the Tesh Tube, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Follow me on Twitter for all the things, up to date with all of them, and then follow me on Twitch for Monster Hunter and likely some Warframe, because there's some good Warframe content coming out soon as well. So Warframe, Destiny, Monster Hunter, those types of games. Maybe Skyrim. I'm getting really into Skyrim.
Cool.
Might start another playthrough.
Neil, you doing anything in a couple hours or no?
No,
Okay.
nothing at all. You can find me one other place. If you look very carefully within the Patreon of Ollie, I play a D&D game. And that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. And Jake, anything you want to mention before we bounce out of here?
No. We're all good. We have Warmonger on Mondays for you guys in America.
No
You,
guest
uh,
spots.
Thursdays for me.
No
you
guest
can-
spots on the podcast.
I was going to, but unfortunately, some things happened where I had to do some parental duties. So
Oh, gotcha.
Ah, parental duties.
Oh, well.
You've been going to the
Yeah.
gym, Jake?
me, no, I haven't in the last month and a half.
Look at those
Wow.
guns.
Oh god.
Holy crap.
Thanks.
Well, as we pop out of here, I do want to remind you there's Lost Initiative tonight, but more importantly, and of course we're reading a channel, but more importantly, nobody once mentions the fact that I put up the New Zealand flag and not the Australian flag.
Yeah, no, someone
chose to
did.
ignore
You
it.
just ignored
Wait,
it.
what?
Norway commented on it.
Wait, hang on, what? I don't have the stream open, so I couldn't
Oh,
tell.
you don't have the stream.
See,
open.
the thing with
See,
the
look, it's
Australian
the
and
same
New Zealand
country.
flag
It's the same country.
is like the important bit doesn't change.
Oh, oh, that's
Wow.
funny. What would they have done if what country was it? Scotland had been able to separate themselves.
Well,
from
they
the
may
UK.
well do it. They're having another referendum.
But if they did, would everybody that has a Union Jack on their flag have to remove that from their flags as well?
I don't know, really. I don't know, because we still kind of own them, is the thing.
Well, and with that, we get out of here.
Wow.
It's gonna be an abrupt ending as that's removed from the tail end of the VOD. Bye, everybody.